The bullet that grazed Victoria Nash's shoulder as she closed up the general store that November evening in 1878 was the final confirmation that staying in Shoshone, Idaho, meant dying there, and not peacefully in her sleep. She pressed her hand against the wound, feeling warm blood seep through her cotton blouse, and stumbled back inside the store her father had built 23 years ago before consumption took him. Her mother had followed him into the ground just 2 years later, leaving Victoria alone at 16 with a business to run, and a heart that had learned early that people leave, one way or another. The sound of boots on the wooden planks outside made her grab the rifle she kept behind the counter. Her hands shook as she aimed it at the door, but she had learned to shoot before she learned to read, and fear had never stopped her from defending what was hers. "Miss Nash." The voice was unfamiliar, deep and steady. "I saw what happened. I am coming in to help, not hurt." "You come through that door and I will put a hole in you," Victoria called back, her voice stronger than she felt. "Fair enough, but you are bleeding and those men who shot at you might circle back. My name is Harrison Jennings. I just rode into town an hour ago, and I would like very much to not spend my first night here watching a woman bleed out because she is too stubborn to accept help." Despite everything, Victoria felt something almost like amusement flicker through her. "You have got a lot of nerve." "Yes, madam. I have been told that before. I am going to open this door real slow. The rifle in my hands is pointing at the ground." The door creaked open and Victoria saw him for the first time. He was tall, probably in his late 20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of creek water in summer. Dust covered his clothes and stubble shadowed his jaw, but there was something solid about him, something that made her finger ease slightly on the trigger. "Who shot you?" he asked, moving carefully toward her, his rifle now propped against the doorframe. "The Garrett brothers. They have been trying to run me out of business for months. They want this property." Victoria felt dizzy suddenly, the room tilting. Harrison moved fast, catching her before she hit the floor. His hands were rough with calluses but gentle as he guided her to the chair behind the counter. "Where do you keep clean cloth?" "Back room. There is a medical kit on the shelf." He was back in moments, his movements efficient as he examined her shoulder. "The bullet went through. You are lucky. This is going to hurt." Victoria gritted her teeth as he cleaned the wound. She had endured worse. The years after her parents died had taught her that pain was just another part of survival. Men had courted her, sure, drawn by the profitable store in her father's land. But they all left when they realized she would not be managed or controlled, when they understood that she had opinions about how to run her business and no intention of handing it over to a husband. The last one, Thomas, had stayed the longest, nearly 6 months. He had promised her forever on a Tuesday and was gone by Friday, running off with the daughter of a wealthy rancher 2 counties over. "You are quiet," Harrison said, wrapping clean bandages around her shoulder. "Thinking about how many times I have been shot at this month." He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "How many?" "This makes 3. And the law," Victoria laughed, the sound bitter. "Sheriff Garrett is their uncle. He says he cannot prove they did anything wrong." Harrison finished with the bandages and sat back on his heels. "I am looking for work. I am good with horses, decent with cattle, and I can handle myself in a fight. I run a general store, not a ranch. But you own land, do you not? And I am guessing you could use someone who is not afraid of the Garrett brothers." Victoria studied him, this stranger who had walked into her life at the exact moment she had been ready to give up. "Why would you want to get involved in my troubles?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I have been riding for 3 months, looking for a place that feels like I could stay. I am tired of moving, tired of running. I saw what happened out there and I saw you standing your ground. That takes courage. Seems to me a woman with that kind of backbone is worth fighting for." The words settled over her like a warm blanket, and she hated how much she wanted to believe them. "Men do not stay, Mr. Jennings. They say pretty things and make promises, but they all leave eventually. I am not other men." He stood, offering her his hand. "And I am asking for a job, not making promises I cannot keep. Let me prove I am different." Victoria took his hand, letting him help her to her feet. "There is a small cabin out back. It has not been used in years, but it has a roof and a stove. You can stay there. In the morning we will talk about wages and work. That is more than fair." She locked up the store, acutely aware of Harrison's presence beside her as they walked the short distance to the cabin. The November wind cut through her thin blouse and she shivered despite herself. "Take my coat," Harrison said, already shrugging out of the worn leather. "I am fine." "You are bleeding and freezing. Take the coat." There was no command in his voice, just simple concern, and that disarmed her more than any amount of insistence would have. She let him drape it over her shoulders, the warmth and smell of leather and sage and something distinctly male enveloping her. The cabin was dusty but intact. Harrison lit the lamp on the small table, illuminating one room with a cot, a wood stove, and a single chair. "This is perfect." "It is barely standing. It has walls and a door that locks. That makes it better than most places I have slept." He turned to her, his expression serious. "Thank you, Miss Nash. Victoria. If you are going to work for me, you might as well use my given name, Victoria." The way he said it, slow and careful, made her name sound like something precious. "I am Harrison." She left him there and walked back to her own house, a two-story structure attached to the store. The loneliness that usually greeted her felt heavier tonight, and she found herself thinking about the cowboy in her cabin, wondering if he would really stay, or if he would be gone by morning like so many others. But when dawn broke cold and clear, Harrison was not only still there, he had already fixed the broken hinge on the cabin door and was chopping wood for her stove. Victoria watched him from her kitchen window, the rhythmic swing of the axe speaking of easy strength. He had cleaned up, his face freshly shaved, his hair combed back. She made coffee and biscuits, carrying them out to him on a tray. "You did not have to do all this. I am earning my keep." He set the axe down and accepted the coffee gratefully. "Besides, I am used to starting early. Old habit from my ranching days." "Why did you leave ranching?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The ranch was my father's. When he died, my older brother inherited everything, made it clear there was no place for me there anymore. I am sorry. Do not be. I learned quick that family does not always mean loyalty." He took a bite of biscuit, his eyes widening slightly. "This is delicious. My mother's recipe." They ate in comfortable silence, the sun climbing higher over the dusty main street of Shoshone. The town was waking up, smoke rising from chimneys, the sound of wagon wheels and voices carrying on the wind. "Tell me about the Garrett brothers," Harrison said finally. Victoria set down her coffee cup. "There are 3 of them. Colt is the oldest, mean as a snake and twice as quick. Brock is the middle one, not as smart but more vicious. Wade is the youngest, barely 20, and he follows whatever his brothers say. Their father owned half the county before he drank himself to death. The boys inherited his land and his ambition. My property sits right in the middle of what they want to turn into a cattle empire. Have they made you an offer?" "Several, each one lower than the last. When I refused, things started happening. Supplies going missing, customers being threatened, and now the shooting." She met his eyes. "This is dangerous, Harrison. I would not blame you if you changed your mind." "I have not changed my mind." He stood, brushing crumbs from his pants. "Show me your land. I want to see what we are protecting." The "we" in that sentence did something strange to Victoria's chest, a warmth spreading that had nothing to do with the morning sun. She led him behind the store, past the cabin, to where her property stretched out toward the hills. 200 acres of good grazing land, a creek that ran year-round, stands of cottonwood and pine. Her father had chosen well. "This is worth fighting for," Harrison said quietly. "I have been fighting alone for so long." The words slipped out before she could stop them. He turned to look at her, and the understanding in his eyes made her breath catch. "You are not alone anymore." The next week proved him right in ways both large and small. Harrison worked from sunup to sundown, repairing fences, tending to the small herd of cattle Victoria kept, handling the heavy lifting in the store. He was patient with customers, firm with troublemakers, and utterly unshakable when Colt Garrett walked in 3 days after Harrison arrived. Colt was a big man, all swagger and menace, his gun belt slung low on his hips. "Heard you hired yourself some protection, Victoria." "I hired a ranch hand, and you can call me Miss Nash." Colt ignored her, his attention fixed on Harrison. "You must be the new fellow. I am Colt Garrett. My family owns most of the land around here." "Good for you." Harrison continued stacking canned goods on the shelf, his movements unhurried. "Just thought I would give you some friendly advice. Working for Miss Nash here might not be the healthiest choice." Now Harrison did turn, and Victoria saw something dangerous flash in his eyes before it was carefully banked. "Are you threatening me or her?" "Just stating facts. Accidents happen out here. Would be a shame if you got caught in one." "I will keep that in mind." Harrison's voice was mild, but his posture was not. "Was there something you needed to buy, or are you just wasting our time?" Colt's face darkened. "You watch your mouth, cowboy." "I think you should leave now," Victoria said, her hand moving toward the rifle behind the counter. Colt looked between them, his expression ugly. "You are making a mistake, Victoria. Both of you are." He stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. "That went well," Harrison said dryly. Despite her fear, Victoria laughed. "You have a talent for making enemies." "Only when they deserve it." He came to stand beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Are you all right? I have dealt with Colt before." "That is not what I asked." Victoria looked up at him, at the genuine concern in his face, and felt her carefully constructed walls crack just a little. "I am tired, Harrison. Tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of doing everything alone." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was tender, almost intimate, and it made her heart race. "You keep saying you are alone, but I am right here, and I am not going anywhere. You have only been here a week. Some things you know quick. This is one of them." She wanted to believe him so badly it hurt, but belief required trust, and trust was a luxury she could not afford. "We should get back to work." If Harrison was disappointed by her retreat, he did not show it. He simply nodded and returned to his tasks. But Victoria felt his eyes on her throughout the day, warm and steady, like he was trying to memorize her. That night, unable to sleep, Victoria sat at her kitchen table going over the account books. The numbers were not good. Between lost inventory and scared-off customers, she was barely breaking even. Another few months of this and she would have no choice but to sell. A knock on her door made her jump. She grabbed her pistol and approached cautiously. "Who is it?" "It is Harrison. I saw your lamp burning." She opened the door to find him standing there in the moonlight, concern etched on his features. "Is something wrong?" "I was about to ask you the same thing. It is past midnight, Victoria. I could not sleep." He gestured to the account book on the table. "Money troubles." She should tell him it was none of his business. Instead, she heard herself say, "The Garretts are winning. Even without buying me out, they are destroying my business." Harrison came inside, closing the door behind him. "May I?" At her nod, he sat down and studied the books, his expression growing more serious. "You need more income." "That is a keen observation. I am serious. Your store does steady business, but it is not enough to offset what you are losing. What about your cattle? I have 20 head. Hardly worth driving to market, but it is a start." Harrison leaned back in his chair, thinking, "What if we built up your herd? I know cattle, Victoria. I could help you turn this into a real operation. That takes money I do not have. It takes time and work. We could start small, breed your existing cattle, buy a few more head when we can. In a year, maybe 2, you would have enough to make a real profit." Victoria wanted to hope, but hope was dangerous. "A year is a long time. I will be here for all of it. You cannot know that." He reached across the table and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. "Look at me." When she did, his eyes were intense, burning with conviction. "I know you have been hurt. I know people have let you down, but I am not them. When I make a commitment, I keep it. And I am committed to this, to helping you save your land, to staying." "Why?" The word came out as barely a whisper. "Because in the week I have known you, I have seen more courage and strength and pure determination than I have seen in most men I have known my whole life. Because you make biscuits that taste like home, and you shoot straight, and you do not back down even when you are scared. Because when I look at you, I see something worth fighting for." Victoria's throat tightened with emotion. "You barely know me. Then let me know you better. Let me stay and prove that not everyone leaves." She wanted to say yes so badly her entire body ached with it, but fear held her back, the fear of believing and being disappointed again. "I need time." "Take all the time you need. I will be here." He left then, walking back to his cabin, and Victoria sat alone in her kitchen with his words echoing in her mind. She looked down at her hand, still warm from his touch, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, this time could be different. The next morning brought snow, unusual for early December in Idaho, but not unheard of. Harrison showed up at her door at dawn with a plan. "I am going to ride out to the Miller Ranch. I heard in town yesterday that they are selling off some of their herd. If I can negotiate a good price, we might be able to get 5 or 6 head for what you can afford. You want to go in this weather? It is just snow. I have ridden through worse." Victoria knew she should let him go alone, but something made her say, "I am coming with you. Your shoulder is barely healed. It is healed enough, and they are my cattle. I should be part of the negotiation." Harrison studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Dress warm. It is going to be a cold ride." They saddled horses and set out together, riding side by side through the falling snow. The world was hushed and white, their breath clouding in the freezing air. Victoria had forgotten what it felt like to have someone riding beside her, to not face everything alone. "Tell me about your family," Harrison said as they rode. "There is not much to tell. My father built the store when this area was barely settled. He believed in Shoshone, thought it would grow into something big. He was right, mostly. My mother was a school teacher from Boston. They met when she came west looking for adventure." Victoria smiled at the memory. She got more than she bargained for. "They sound like they loved each other." "They did, completely. When my father died, I think my mother lost her will to live. She just faded away." Victoria paused. "I used to think love like that was beautiful. Now I think it might just be dangerous." "Why?" "Because when you give someone that much power over your happiness, you are giving them the power to destroy you." Harrison was quiet for a while. "My parents were like that too. When my mother died giving birth to my youngest sister, my father was never the same. But I do not think he regretted loving her. I think he was grateful for the years they had." "Your sister, is she all right?" "Emily." "Yes, she is 17 now, living with our aunt in Kansas." My brother was not interested in raising her. There was bitterness in his voice. I send her money when I can. She wants to go to college. You miss her. Every day. He looked at Victoria, his expression open. Family is not just blood. It is the people who show up, who stay when things get hard. My brother and I share blood, but he is not family, not in any way that matters. Victoria understood what he was saying, the message beneath the words. You are talking about more than your brother. I am talking about us. What we could be, if you let yourself trust me. Before she could respond, they crested a hill and saw the Miller Ranch spread out below them. The conversation would have to wait, but Victoria found herself both relieved and disappointed. The negotiation took 2 hours. Mr. Miller was a shrewd businessman, and even Harrison's considerable charm and knowledge could only bring the price down so far. In the end, they managed to buy 4 young heifers and a bull for most of Victoria's savings. You better be right about this, Victoria said as they herded the cattle back toward her property. Trust me. I am trying. Those 2 words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Harrison looked at her, his eyes searching her face. I know, and I am not taking that for granted. They got the cattle settled just as the snow began falling harder. Harrison insisted on checking the fences one more time before dark, and Victoria went to start dinner. She found herself making enough for 2, setting the table in her kitchen with the good plates her mother had brought from Boston. When Harrison knocked, she called for him to come in. He stopped in the doorway, taking in the set table, the smell of beef stew and fresh bread. Victoria, I cannot ask you to feed me. You are not asking, I am offering. Now sit down before it gets cold. He did, removing his hat and hanging it by the door. Sitting across from him in the lamplight, sharing a meal, felt dangerously domestic, dangerously right. This is delicious, Harrison said after his first bite. Do not sound so surprised. I am not. I am just grateful. He looked at her over the table. I have been on my own a long time. I forgot what it feels like to have someone cook for you, to sit down to a real meal. How long have you been drifting? 3 years, since my father died and my brother inherited. I have worked a dozen ranches from Texas to Montana, never staying longer than a season. Always moving, always looking for something I could not name. And now I think I found it. His eyes held hers. I think I found her. Victoria's heart hammered in her chest. Harrison, do not. Do not what? Tell you the truth. Tell you that I think about you every moment, that I wake up grateful I have a reason to see you, that I go to sleep hoping tomorrow I will find a way to make you smile. You have known me 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks I have seen enough to know what I want, a place to belong, work that matters, a woman worth building a life with. Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I cannot do this. I cannot let myself believe and then watch you leave. Harrison stood too, coming around the table slowly. I am not going to leave. You cannot know that. Yes, I can, because I am choosing it. Every day I am choosing to stay. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. What are you so afraid of, Victoria? That you will be like all the others. Then let me prove I am not. Let me show you that when I say I am staying, I mean it, not just for a week or a month, but for as long as you will have me. And if I cannot give you what you want, if I am too damaged, too scared, then we will work through it together, but you have to give me a chance. You have to let me try. Victoria looked up at him, at the earnest hope in his face, and felt something inside her begin to give way. I do not know how. Start by having dinner with me. Just this, just tonight. And tomorrow we will take another step, one day at a time, Victoria, that is all I am asking. She took a shaky breath. One day at a time. That is all. They finished dinner, the conversation lighter, easier. Harrison told her stories about his years on the trail, about the characters he had met and the places he had seen. Victoria found herself laughing, really laughing for the first time in months. When he left that night, he paused at the door. "Thank you for dinner. And for trusting me enough to try. Do not make me regret it. I will do everything in my power not to." The days began to fall into a pattern. Harrison worked the cattle and helped in the store. Victoria managed the business and slowly, carefully, began to let him into her life. They shared meals, conversations that stretched long into the evening. He learned that she loved reading but rarely had time for it, so he started bringing books from the tiny town library, sitting with her while she read aloud by lamplight. She learned that he had a gift for working with horses, gentle and patient, and she found herself watching him when he thought she was not looking. The Garrett brothers tried twice more to run them off. Once they stampeded the cattle in the middle of the night, but Harrison heard them coming and managed to get the herd under control. The second time, they set fire to the hay barn. Harrison and Victoria fought the fire together, working side by side until they were both covered in soot and ash, but they saved the building. "This has to stop," Victoria said as they sat exhausted in the aftermath. "It will. They are getting desperate. That means we are winning. Or it means they are going to escalate." Harrison looked at her seriously. "If you want to sell, I will understand. This is not your fight." "Yes, it is. This is my life, my home. I am not giving it up." She paused. "But I am not asking you to risk everything either." "You are not asking. I am choosing." He reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it. "When are you going to understand that I am here because I want to be? Because there is nowhere else I would rather be than right here with you. I am starting to believe you." "Good. That is a start." Christmas came with more snow and a rare moment of peace. Harrison surprised Victoria by bringing a small pine tree to her house, decorating it with strings of popcorn and paper ornaments he made himself. She surprised him by giving him a new hat, dark brown and well-made, to replace his worn one. "You did not have to do this," he said, running his fingers over the brim. "I wanted to. You have done so much for me. It is the least I could do." He set the hat down carefully and took both her hands in his. "I do not do this for payment, Victoria. I do it because I care about you. Because I want to." They stood there in front of the little tree, the lamplight soft around them, and Victoria felt something shift irrevocably inside her. "Harrison, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I am scared. I am scared of how much I am starting to feel for you. I am scared that this is real and I am going to lose it, but I am more scared of pushing you away because of my fear." His eyes softened. "You are not going to lose me. Promise me." "I promise." He lifted one hand to cup her cheek. "Can I kiss you?" Her breath caught. "Yes." He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but when Victoria leaned into him, it deepened. His arms came around her, holding her close, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. It felt like coming home, like finding something she had not even known she was searching for. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Harrison rested his forehead against hers. "I am in love with you, Victoria Nash. I think I have been since the moment I saw you holding that rifle, blood on your shoulder and fire in your eyes." Tears pricked at Victoria's eyes. "I am falling in love with you too, and it terrifies me. Then let us be terrified together." He kissed her again, softer this time. "One day at a time, remember? One day at a time." The new year of 1879 came in cold and clear. Harrison moved out of the cabin and into Victoria's house, though he insisted on sleeping in the spare room until they were properly married. "I want to do this right," he told her. "I want everyone to know you are mine and I am yours, legally and in the eyes of God." He proposed on a Tuesday evening in February, no grand gesture, just the two of them sitting at the kitchen table after dinner. "Marry me," he said simply. "Let me spend the rest of my life proving I am worth your trust." Victoria did not hesitate this time. Yes. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Shoshone, with half the town as witnesses. Victoria wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved, and Harrison bought a new suit. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Harrison kissed her in front of everyone, his hands framing her face, and Victoria felt the last of her walls crumble completely. The Garrett brothers showed up drunk at the reception, making threats and causing a scene. But this time, the town stood with Victoria and Harrison. Mr. Miller and his sons escorted the Garretts out bodily, and Sheriff Garrett, faced with the anger of his constituents, finally promised to investigate his nephew's activities. That night, in the privacy of their bedroom, Harrison undressed Victoria slowly, reverently, kissing every inch of skin he exposed. "You are so beautiful," he whispered against her throat. "I am nervous. So am I." He pulled back to look at her. "We go slow. We learn together, all right." All right. They made love carefully, tenderly, learning each other's bodies and responses. Harrison was patient and gentle, and when Victoria cried afterward, he held her close and stroked her hair. "Are you all right? Did I hurt you?" "No, I am just happy. I forgot what happy felt like." He kissed her temple. "Get used to it. I plan on making you happy for the next 50 years at least." Spring brought growth in every way. The cattle were thriving, and Victoria discovered she was pregnant. When she told Harrison, he picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure joy. "We are having a baby. We are having a baby." He set her down carefully, his hands going to her still flat stomach. "I am going to be a father. Are you happy?" Happy does not even begin to cover it. He kissed her deeply. "I love you, Victoria Jennings. You and this baby are the best things that ever happened to me." But their happiness was short-lived. The Garrett brothers, increasingly desperate and facing legal trouble, decided to take one last shot at driving them out. They came in the middle of the night with torches, intent on burning everything to the ground. Harrison woke to the sound of breaking glass and the smell of smoke. He got Victoria out of the house fast, pressing his pistol into her hands. "Get to the Millers. Do not stop for anything. I am not leaving you. Our baby, Victoria, you have to think of our baby." He kissed her hard and fast. "I will be right behind you, I promise. Now go." Victoria ran, tears streaming down her face, her hand pressed to her stomach. She heard gunshots behind her and had to physically stop herself from turning back. She made it to the Miller ranch just as Mr. Miller and his sons were saddling horses, having seen the flames. "Harrison is still there," she gasped. They rode hard back to her property, arriving to find Harrison and several townsmen fighting the Garrett brothers. The store was on fire, flames licking up the sides, but the house was intact. The fight was brutal and fast. Colt Garrett took a bullet in the shoulder. Brock was knocked unconscious. Wade, faced with half the town armed and angry, threw down his gun and surrendered. Harrison, his face bruised and bleeding, found Victoria in the crowd and pulled her into his arms. "I told you I would be right behind you. You could have died. But I did not. We are both all right. The baby is all right." He held her tighter. "We are going to be fine." The Garrett brothers were arrested that night. Sheriff Garrett, finally forced to choose between family and duty, sided with the law. The brothers were sentenced to prison, and their land was sold to pay for damages. Mr. Miller bought most of it, and he offered Harrison a job managing his herd, a position that paid well and came with a percentage of the profits. The store was damaged but not destroyed. Harrison and the townspeople rebuilt it over the summer, making it better than before. By the time Victoria's belly was round with their child, business was booming. Their son was born in October, a healthy boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's determined chin. They named him Michael, and Harrison cried when he held him for the first time. "He is perfect. You are perfect." Victoria, exhausted and happy, smiled up at her husband. "He has your nose, poor kid. I love your nose. I love everything about you." Harrison kissed her softly. "Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for staying." The years that followed were full and rich. They had 2 more children, a daughter they named Sarah and another son called Thomas. The cattle business thrived, and Victoria's store became the heart of Shoshone's growing community. Harrison proved himself as reliable as the seasons, steady and constant, showing up every single day with the same commitment he had promised. On their 10th anniversary, Victoria woke to find Harrison watching her in the early morning light. "Why are you staring at me?" "Because I am grateful. Every single day, I wake up grateful that you gave me a chance, that you let me stay." "I am grateful too. You changed my life, Harrison Jennings. You showed me that some people do stay, that love does not have to mean loss." He pulled her close, kissing her slowly. "I am going to keep showing you that for the rest of our lives." And he did. Through the ordinary days and the hard ones, through sickness and health, through the trials of raising children and running businesses, Harrison stayed. He stayed when Michael broke his arm falling out of a tree. He stayed through the harsh winter of 1885 when they nearly lost the herd. He stayed when Victoria's general store caught fire again, this time by accident, and they had to rebuild from scratch. He stayed through Sarah's difficult teenage years and Thomas's decision to become a lawyer instead of a rancher. Victoria watched him with their grandchildren decades later, old now but still strong, still steady, and she marveled at the truth of it. He had stayed. Through everything, through 40 years of marriage and life and love, Harrison had stayed. They were sitting on the porch of their house one summer evening, the sun setting over the land they had fought so hard to keep, when Victoria took his hand. "Do you remember what you said to me that first night, when you asked for a job?" Harrison smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. "I said a lot of things that night. You said you were tired of moving, tired of running, that you were looking for a place that felt like you could stay." "I remember. Did you find it? Was it what you hoped?" He turned to look at her, his eyes still that same creek water green, still full of love after all these years. "I found more than I hoped. I found home. I found purpose. I found you. And every single day for the past 40 years, I have been grateful I stopped in Shoshone that November night. Even through the hard times. Especially through the hard times. Anyone can stay when things are easy, Victoria, but we stayed through the hard times together. That is what makes it real." She leaned her head on his shoulder, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and orange. Their children were grown with families of their own. Michael ran the cattle operation now, having taken over when Harrison's knees got too bad for riding all day. Sarah had married a merchant and moved to Boise, coming home every summer with her 4 children. Thomas practiced law in Idaho Falls, specializing in land rights and helping small ranchers protect their property from larger operations, inspired by his parents' story. The general store was now run by a young couple from town, though Victoria still helped out occasionally, unable to fully let go of the business her father had built. Harrison spent his days fixing things around the property, playing with grandchildren, and sitting on the porch with his wife, exactly as he had always wanted. "You have any regrets?" Victoria asked. Harrison was quiet for a moment. "I regret that I did not find you sooner. Think of all the years we could have had. We have had enough. We have had a lifetime. And I would do it all again, exactly the same way, just to end up right here with you." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Even after all these years, Harrison could still make her emotional with his simple honesty. "I love you. I love you too. Every single day, Victoria. Every single day." They sat in comfortable silence as the stars began to appear. Two people who had found each other when both had nearly given up, who had chosen to trust and stay and build something lasting. The land stretched out before them, the land they had fought for and worked and poured their hearts into, and it felt like a testament to everything they had built together. Their story became the stuff of local legend. The young woman who refused to give up her land, and the cowboy who stopped to help and never left. Young couples in Shoshone would look at Victoria and Harrison holding hands as they walked through town in their 70s and whisper that they wanted a love like that. A love that lasted. A love built on trust and commitment, and the simple decision to stay. Harrison's sister, Emily, came to visit often, grateful for the brother who had never forgotten her, who had helped pay for her education and supported her dreams. She became a teacher, eventually moving to Shoshone to run the school, and she would tell her students about persistence and loyalty, using her brother as an example of a man who kept his word. The Garrett family name faded into obscurity. The brothers served their time and moved away, seeking fresh starts elsewhere. The uncle who had failed in his duty as sheriff was voted out of office. The land they had coveted became part of the thriving community that grew up around Shoshone, a testament to the fact that greed and violence ultimately lose to honest work and integrity. Victoria and Harrison's relationship became the foundation that their entire family was built on. Their children grew up seeing what real partnership looked like, what it meant to face challenges together, to support each other's dreams, to stay even when things got hard. Michael married a woman as strong-willed as his mother, and together they expanded the cattle operation into one of the most successful in Idaho. Sarah's marriage was built on mutual respect and genuine friendship, the same qualities she had watched her parents model. Thomas fought for the little guy in courtrooms across the state, remembering how his parents had stood against bullies and won. On their 50th anniversary, the entire town threw them a celebration. The church was packed with family, friends, and people whose lives Victoria and Harrison had touched over the decades. The mayor gave a speech about the Jennings family's contributions to Shoshone's growth and prosperity. Harrison's former ranch hands, some now successful ranchers themselves, shared stories of his fairness and skill. Victoria's customers spoke of her generosity and business acumen. But the moment Victoria remembered most came at the end of the night, when everyone had gone home and it was just her and Harrison again, dancing slowly in their living room to music only they could hear. 50 years, she said softly. You stayed for 50 years. 50 years is not enough. I am planning on at least 50 more, she laughed, the sound full of love and joy. We will be over 100 years old. Then I guess I better stay in good shape. He pulled her closer. Do you remember what I said the night we met, when you told me men do not stay? You said you were not other men. I meant it then and I mean it now. You are stuck with me, Victoria Jennings, for better or worse, in sickness and health until death do us part, and even then I am going to find a way to stay with you. You are ridiculous. I am in love. She kissed him then, soft and sweet, tasting of 50 years of shared mornings and whispered secrets and weathered storms. I am glad you stopped that night. I am glad I let you help. I am glad I gave you a chance. So am I. Best decision I ever made. They stood there swaying in the lamplight, two people who had taken a chance on each other and built an entire life on that foundation. The house around them was filled with memories, every corner holding a story, every room echoing with laughter and tears, and the countless ordinary moments that made up a marriage. Harrison had kept his promise in every way that mattered. He had stayed through Victoria's fear and learned to be patient. He had stayed through the attacks and the fires and the moments when it would have been easier to walk away. He had stayed through pregnancies and midnight feedings and sick children. He had stayed through business struggles and lean years and times when they barely had 2 coins to rub together. He had stayed through disagreements and hurt feelings, and the inevitable conflicts of 2 strong-willed people building a life together. And in staying, he had taught Victoria that she was worth staying for, that her value was not in her property or her business or her beauty, but in who she was as a person. That love was not about perfection but about commitment, about choosing each other over and over again, day after day, year after year. Victoria had learned to trust again, to open her heart and believe that not everyone leaves. She had learned that love was not a weakness but a strength, that letting someone in did not make her vulnerable but rather made her complete. She had learned that the right person does not just promise to stay. They prove it through their actions, through showing up, through the quiet faithfulness of ordinary days. Their love story was not the dramatic tale of love at first sight or passionate whirlwinds. It was better than that. It was the story of 2 damaged people who found each other and chose to heal together. It was the story of patience and persistence, of trust earned slowly and kept faithfully. It was the story of a man who said he would stay and meant it, and a woman who learned to believe again. As they grew older, their love only deepened. They held hands through funerals of old friends and births of great-grandchildren. They sat together watching sunsets and sunrises, finding new things to talk about even after saying everything 100 times before. They laughed at private jokes decades old and created new ones. They supported each other through aches and pains and the indignities of aging bodies, never losing sight of the people they had been and still were underneath the wrinkles and gray hair. Harrison died first, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 83, Victoria beside him as she had been for 54 years. His last words were, "I am sorry I have to go first. I know I promised to stay." "You did stay," Victoria whispered through her tears. "You stayed longer and better than anyone else ever could have. You kept your promise, my love. You kept every promise." Victoria lived another 2 years, surrounded by her children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all of them a testament to the love she and Harrison had built. She spent those years telling their story, making sure the young ones understood what real love looked like, what commitment and faithfulness meant. She joined Harrison on a spring morning, the kind of morning they had both loved, when the world was green and new and full of possibility. Her last thought was of a November evening in 1878, of a cowboy with creek water eyes standing in the doorway of her store, offering help and asking for a chance. She had given him that chance, and in return, he had given her everything. He had given her love and partnership and family. He had given her security and joy and 54 years of knowing she was cherished. Most importantly, he had given her the gift of his presence, of his steadfast, unchanging, faithful presence. He had stayed. Their story lived on in Shoshone long after they were gone. The general store, rebuilt and modernized but still standing on the same plot of land Victoria's father had chosen, bore a plaque commemorating the Nash and Jennings families. The ranch, now run by Michael's children, was known throughout Idaho for its quality cattle and its reputation for integrity. The church where they had married held their wedding portrait in the fellowship hall, an example of enduring love for newly engaged couples to aspire to. But more than buildings and businesses, Victoria and Harrison's legacy lived on in the values they had instilled in their descendants. The importance of keeping your word, The power of staying when things get hard. The beauty of faithfulness and commitment. The truth that real love is not found in grand gestures but in the choice to show up, day after day, year after year, through everything life throws at you. Generations later, their great-great-grandchildren would sit on the same porch where Victoria and Harrison had watched sunsets and listen to the story of how their ancestors met. They heard about the woman who had given up on finding someone who would stay, and the cowboy who stayed and never planned to leave. They learned that the best things in life require patience and courage, that trust must be earned slowly and kept faithfully, that love is a choice made new every morning. And in learning their story, they learned what it means to build something lasting, to create a legacy not of wealth or fame, but of love and faithfulness. They learned that the most powerful thing you can do for someone is simply to stay, to be present, to choose them again and again until choosing them becomes as natural as breathing. Victoria had been right to be afraid. Love was dangerous. It did give someone the power to hurt you. But Harrison had shown her that it also gave someone the power to heal you, to complete you, to make you more than you ever could have been alone. The risk was worth it. The vulnerability was worth it. The trust was worth it. Because at the end of everything, what matters is not how many times you fall or fail or get hurt. What matters is that you find someone worth staying for, and you become someone worth staying for in return. What matters is that you build something real and lasting, something that outlives you, something that changes the world in small but meaningful ways. Victoria and Harrison had done that. They had taken their broken pieces and built something beautiful. They had taken their fears and turned them into faith. They had taken a chance on each other and created a love that lasted not just through their lifetimes, but through the lifetimes of everyone they touched. In the end, the story of Victoria Nash and Harrison Jennings was not just a love story. It was a story about hope and healing, about the power of commitment and the beauty of faithfulness. It was a story about two people who found each other when both had nearly given up and chose to build a life together, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of staying at a time. And that, more than anything, was worth remembering. That was worth passing down through the generations. That was the kind of love worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth believing in even when you had given up hope. Because that kind of love, the kind that stays, is the kind that changes everything. The land still stands, green and thriving, a testament to the people who loved it and each other. The creek still runs clear, providing water for cattle that bear the Jennings brand. The house still welcomes family home for holidays and summers. And if you listen closely on a quiet evening, you might almost hear the echo of a woman's laugh and a man's low voice. Two souls who found each other in the Wild West and built something eternal from the simple decision to stay.